Life is a long highway and I'm just doing the best I can.
Welcome back to the Straight Line to Success. This is part 2 of my conversation with Nick Eason. Nick, so great to have you here. I want to thank you again for spending some time sharing your story and success and challenges and having some fun. We're having some great times here. So last show we were talking about sort of the college, how you had to transition from a couple different positions, tight end, defensive end, tackle. You go in to get drafted in the NFL. You're, on cloud 9 the week before. You're a first rounder. It's a lock. You got Hey Rookie, the show, the first time at your show, and all of a sudden it didn't end up quite like you wanted. You got drafted, though. You end up in Denver. Great team. Coach Shanahan was a complete hard butt, if I recall correctly. He was working you guys, but talk about that. What was it like going from college Nick to NFL Nick?
Man, it was really an adjustment. It was a lot. It was a bigger adjustment from going to high school to coming to Clemson, for sure.
Yeah.
Now you're at a stage where everybody's elite. And there are some areas of my game that is still elite, my strength, and that I have, the strength of my strengths are better than theirs. But there, some guys that were more technique sound and just, understand the game within the game more than I did at the time. And so that was an adjustment and just being, it's like hitting the restart button again. I went from a all-state tight end to becoming a freshman at Clemson, getting in the fight my first day and then redshirting and then becoming a, all-ACC player and all the things that I accomplished at Clemson. And then I hit the restart button again. Now I'm back to being a rookie.
Yeah.
And it's just a different world. I didn't get in the fight my first day in the pros. That's for sure.
You didn't?
No, I did not. I wanted to, but I was like, there'll probably be a little bit more of a consequence at that level. But, still had the same passion, same hunger. Just trying to figure it out, like, man, how am I going to get on the field? The physicality of the game has never been the issue, but one thing I had to learn is become a student of the game. And so that's an area of my game that I needed to improve.
So talk to us about that, the playbook. Like I mentioned on the last show that you're one of the smartest athletes and really anybody that I've ever been around. So intelligence wasn't the issue.
Right.
But when you get that playbook, I mean, it's like that thick.
1,000%.
Tell me.
It's just a lot of information thrown at you within a short period of time.
And how did you get mentors that helped you process that? I mean, how did that work?
I think that, I really, I had Trevor Price there. I had Shannon Sharp there, Shannon was on the other side of the ball, but just watching him as a veteran player, like why, was he in his 15th year at that point in time? And, why Trevor Price was so good and why, Al Golden was good, or Champ Bailey and John Lynch, who's now the GM at the San Francisco 49ers, what made them great. And they were all students of the game that took care of their bodies. And so I was trying to really surround myself with those type of guys, and did a good job of just doing it and learning the game. Boy, I've realized that I didn't know what I thought I knew and was really relying upon my physical attributes here when I was in college just to run through people. But, there were a lot of guys that did bench 500 or squat 760 pounds like me that could find a way to stop me. And I'm just like, how in the world is he doing it? He's like 280 and I'm 310. And the dude, it was just technique. And understand like the technique of the game and understand seeing formations, seeing backfield sets, understanding situation awareness, where the ball is at on the field, understand what to expect when you get certain, backfield sets. I know all that now that I'm a coach. But if I knew then, the coaching knowledge that I have now and was that be able to apply that to the game back then, I would have probably played for 15 years, maybe longer. Between that and then learning how to take care of my body as a pro.
But you still played for 11 years?
Yeah, but I could have got more. I'm just telling you, I really wish, you can't, go back, but I wish I would have become more of a student of the game. I think that's an area of my pro career that I wish I started out earlier. I became a student of the game as time went on. I mean, obviously I'm a young man. I'm making a lot of money. I had distractions. Of course, I got frustrated and got the hell up out of there one day and said, to hell with it. you know.
Talk about that, because do you mind if I talk about that?
I don't mind at all, man.
So you know, y'all talked about the this is y'all like this. So you know, Bryant McNeil and you were y'all were giving us hell. Y'all were always messing with us. Of course, Cheryl was getting y'all's breakfast, and then y'all end up. So you Bryant called me and said, Nick took off.
Yeah.
And I thought he was just pulling my leg. Next thing I know, the phone rings. It's a reporter. Hey, can you talk about Nick? You know, and I said, well, let me call you back.
Yeah.
And then I got the freaking GM calling me.
Yeah. So,
and he was like, man, anyway, go ahead. Talk about that.
So, man, I really probably wish I had respected my coaches at the time. There were some things I was working through with them, and you know, I always I say this all the time, like I tell people, like, I'm not gonna if I can't punch you in the mouth, I'm not arguing with you. And so, you know, it's like, people on social media, if you're paying attention, I'm not gonna argue with anybody. If I can't punch you in your mouth, I'm not gonna argue with you. You know, and so, man, I got frustrated, and you're like, you know what? I need to take a break, you know, because I'm about to blow a gasket here.
Yeah.
But what really took place, I didn't really go anywhere. I left. I didn't show up, but I wasn't like, you know, they thought I was on the other side of the country. I actually took a road trip for like a day.
Yeah.
And then I really began to find out how big and important the NFL was. You don't show up at NFL training camp. And at that point in time, I think, you know, embarrassment has set in. And then I'm like, holy smokes, like I'm on ESPN and my family's all stressed. There was a player from Baylor, a basketball player that was missing at the time, I think, and he was deceased, I think. So that was going on at the same time. My family's back in Georgia. Word, I'm not answering the phone because I don't want to answer the phone. And people are panicking. I didn't realize how big it was until it got so big to the point where I'm like, how the heck am I going to, like, you know,
do you remember talking to me about that situation?
I know. I was like, man, how am I going to fix this? You know, I'm embarrassed. You know, I'm you know, like, what was I thinking? I'm thinking like, oh, I'm a 4th round draft pick. Nobody's going to care. And like, boy, contracts, NFL, Clemson, that's a problem.
But what they said, what you know, Sundquist told me, he said, we knew we were working him hard. And he was doing great. You got dehydrated. And they said we were about to give him a bonus because he was working so hard. He just took off. And so basically they said, just get him back. I said, Nick, I think you just go back. You told me, you said, man, Wyatt, you know, I was playing football. This wasn't my dream. I was playing for all these other people, you know, and I said, well, you know, here's the thing. You can go back and keep your signing bonus, or you can go ahead and quit and get back your signing bonus.
No, I wasn't going to quit. I think, like, man, as I look back on it, it was like, you know, the NFL was a different world. And you may have some veteran guys that just be like, you know what the hell, I ain't practicing today. You're dealing with just some different things, you know, from a team standpoint, you know, and you learn. And as I became a veteran guy, you know, because then, listen, you know, when I was a rookie, you better have pancakes over there. You better have anything to ask for, you better bring it. You know. And so, man, I was really adjusting to a lot of that stuff. And then guys are like, no, you gonna carry my pads, something I ain't never had to do. You gonna do this. Now, I did. We went through kind of a toughness stage in college, but I didn't know it was a thing in the pros. And so I was just like, screw you and screw you. And I bet you won't touch me, you know, type thing. And I was just mad, probably more frustrated in my own self, but that changed real quickly when they started talking about you got to give your bonus back.
Well, you went back and you had a great career. And one of the things that you know, I wanted to just point out was you and I met because at the time, you know, they were emphasizing the fact that the NFL career is like 2 to 3 years, you know, years.
100%.
And so I was like, well, Nick, look, you know, we can't assume that you're going to play for 11 years. 100%. What do you want to do when you're done? And you were like, I want to be a coach. I want to coach. And so we kind of, you know, drew that up as a trajectory. And, you know, you ended up going from Denver
to Cleveland.
Now you went to NFL Europe, right?
I went to Europe while I was under contract with the Denver Broncos because the NFL Europe was a space they used for development.
Right, they were developing you.
Correct, and because remember I was on IR.
You had the second, you had your, and when you got that Achilles, that's when Sundquist was like, we knew that was going to happen. It was just a matter of time.
So I got.
That's why you dropped to the fourth round.
Yep, exactly. And so just a year to develop, which I thought was great. Made a lot of great relationships.
And where were you in Europe?
I was in Scotland.
And how did that change your perspective? Was that a life-changing experience?
Man, it was a life-changing experience, and really had a great appreciation for being where I'm from in America. And at the time, that's when there was a lot of turmoil with America and maybe Iran or something. There was beheadings and things that were going on, and America was not being projected in a positive light over in Scotland where I was at.
Gotcha.
It was like we were the culprits, and so I'm walking around. Obviously, I'm a 6'4", 310-pound African American guy. I'm from South Georgia, so I got a country slang, and everybody know that he is not from here.
Scotland.
Yeah, he ain't from Scotland, and he is not from London.
Yes.
I'm from Georgia. You from the States, as they say. Oh, so you from the States? And I'm like, yeah. And then I already got warning. So one thing is just stay to yourself and don't talk about soccer over there. That was kind of the rules.
Okay.
But man, I went there. It was a great experience for me. Come back, and then I remember one week they was like, hey, we're gonna put you down, so we need to make some roster moves. And I said, okay. And I left, obviously went to San Francisco, the 49ers.
Yep.
And then something happened with my contract there. It didn't work out. And then I ended up in Cleveland. So.
And you were in Cleveland for
3 years. Yeah. I played for Romeo Cornell and Butch Davis. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're struggling. You're a journeyman to some degree.
Yeah.
And then how did you end up with the Steelers?
I initially was going to, I don't know if you knew this, but I was going to go take the FBI test. I was going to be a FBI agent, and I was scheduled to take the test in Chicago.
I remember you talking about that.
I was like, man, the heck with this. I'm going to go be an FBI agent.
Yeah.
Because that was a passion of mine. And I was in Orlando. I was at Disney World. And I remember getting a call from their general manager or travel people asking would I want to come on a visit, and that's when that's my kind of humor story, meeting Mike Tomlin. I was there at the facility, actually talking to the head coach of the Steelers, and did not know I was the head coach of the Steelers because keep in mind he was like 32.
Okay.
And he looked dressed like me, looked just as young as me. And at the time, I figured out later on in that visit, when our general manager came and got me while I was meeting with Dick LeBeau and said, hey, we're going to go see the head coach. And it's the guy that I've been sitting here talking to about that I think is on the Steelers roster. So from that point, I learned this. Always know who the head coach is and do some due diligence before you go visit a team. So that was kind of embarrassing. But me and him all ended up being really good friends and still are to this day.
Yeah.
So, but man, that was best time of my life being there in Pittsburgh, and I had the opportunity to go to 2 Super Bowls there. And
yeah, well, let me talk to you about that, because I remember we reconnected.
Yeah.
Jamal Fudge was playing,
Yeah.
and I came to see him in one of the playoff games,
Yep.
and we connected.
Jacksonville.
Yep. And had he was at Jacksonville.
Yep.
They were playing a playoff game in Pittsburgh, and you emailed me, said, where are you at? I want to come see you. And so we got together, and you were in free agency.
Yeah.
And so we were negotiating with the Steelers in free agency, and there were some other teams that wanted you. And, we're looking at the numbers. We're looking at money. We're trying to get a little more money on the table. We always are.
Yeah.
And you said, David, we got such a great team. I think we can win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that, just right out of the blue. And I was like, what? What'd you say?
Yeah.
So I think we can win the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
And I said, well, dadgum, Nick, if you can win the Super Bowl, that's that's what everybody wants. They want that ring, and it's going to put, you'll always be a Super Bowl champion. And so you were like, well, let's do it. Let's do it. So we stayed.
Yep.
An incredible season. What an incredible season. Absolutely. Dallas, snowing in Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and then you end up Of course, I know a lot of people wanted Kurt Warner to win the Super Bowl that year. It was a storybook ending.
Absolutely.
Y'all are in Tampa.
From the grocery store to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Yeah, he was working back in groceries. Wow, it's amazing.
But y'all swatted them down.
Absolutely.
Spoiler alert.
Thank you to San Antonio Holmes and Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, my goodness.
And the old lineman who blocked on that drive.
I mean, you played. I remember Disney was trying to get you locked up with a contract.
Yeah.
And I was like trying to get some money because I'm like, and this guy was like, man, you know what? We just have to have him under contract. That's what I'm gonna be there. I'll be at the game. And so if he wins the MVP, then we can negotiate it right there. And he was like, oh no, I got to get him under contract anyway. Though, but you played kickoff, kickoff return, punt return, defense. I mean, you were on almost every team out there.
Yeah, I was on special teams. I think some of my current guys laugh. Because they know I was 305, 310. I'm like, you was on kickoff. Like, I was the 5 running down. And I remember just being on every special teams because I've always just been like, I just want to win. I'm just trying to get on the field and help contribute because I want to be a part of the reason why you win. And so, I played every special teams and played on defense as well. And that was kind of my role there at Pittsburgh. And obviously had an opportunity to start quite a few games while I was there as well. I made a lot of great relationships. And I just knew that we were capable of winning a Super Bowl because of the level of camaraderie we had as a team. And I knew it was real. I look back as I reflect back now. Back then and reflect now, those guys that I played with are still my friends today.
So this is 2009.
Yeah.
And I was in the stands. Thank you very much. Ann and I were there, and with your mom, and I believe your grandmother was there with us. And maybe your uncle.
And his wife,
Yeah. It was incredible. So I can remember being up there. Of course, when San Antonio caught that one touchdown, we couldn't quite see, and then you see the going crazy and everything. But I remember you being down there in front of us with all that confetti and everything flying after y'all won. What was that like? What's it like being a player winning the Super Bowl?
It was a blessing for me, and just in the moment, it just kind of surreal.
You remember any of your thoughts?
Yeah, I just like a kid in the candy shop looking at the confetti, and even when I came out, in the game, when we came out the tunnel, and just I remember the flashing of the lights. And I just remember that part of it, and it just being the moment where, man, I just felt so truly blessed. Of course, my mom actually had just gotten diagnosed with breast cancer then too, and she was able to come to the game, and so it was a special moment for me to be able to give her that joy back then, to be able to witness that. And she had just had her first chemo treatment the day before. And traveled down. And because after the game, she wasn't able to come by to the party because she was sick from the chemotherapy. So she just stayed in my room.
And I do want to talk about that, but I'm trying to really pull out some thoughts, actual thoughts. So running onto the Super Bowl field,
100% was like, it's just, I couldn't believe it. It's like, is this really going on right now? And then
were you nervous?
I was not nervous. I've never been starstruck from stepping into a stadium. I just didn't want to get there and lose. To make it all the way, because I've experienced that as well. And just to be there and how I got there, reflecting on when I was a kid at Toombs County playing rec ball, and now I'm running out in a Super Bowl as a Pittsburgh Steelers of all places. How just what a blessing, and just really valuing and taking it all in. It's just like, man, I'm just a little skinny kid from Lyons, Georgia. I'm running out here to play against the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm playing. I'm suited and booted, ready to rock and roll.
Awesome.
And so what a blessing that was. So just to have that moment and to do it with the men that I had the opportunity to do it with.
And who was the defensive guy that took the 99-yard?
That was James Harris.
James Harris.
Yes.
What an incredible. That turned the whole thing around right before halftime, right?
Absolutely, man. Incredible player, incredible man.
And you almost scooped that ball up.
Yep. It was just an incredible play by him. And just I'm thankful for all the men who sacrificed during that season, and just it was definitely a team effort, and everybody had their role and understood their role, and I would say that was one of the most unselfish teams that I've ever been a part of.
You had Troy Polamalu was on that team, Ben Roethlisberger.
A lot of Hall of Famers on that team. As well as everyone knows, but man, just an incredible group of men.
I mean, you could name them all because they were all great.
They were all great players, and But that was definitely defensively being on the field. You bet you were in a race to try to get to the ball, because if you didn't, somebody else is going to beat you there. So you're straining. Yeah.
I was thinking, man, Nick's going to get that. But so that's what it was like coming out. Mm-hmm. But when you won, the game is over, the clock is ticked off, the confetti's out there. What's that like?
I'm just wanting to do a snow angel. It's just like you go through the moment and you're excited and you're like, what's next? And then you're looking around and you see Snoop Dogg and you see the Kardashians and you see Jesse Jackson and you see all the things and all the different people. Yeah. And then afterwards, it's like, what's next? You have a sense of gratification, a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment. But then you got to go back, and it's like the next day, it's like, well, that was fun. Now what? It's got to go back and repeat.
Yeah.
Which we didn't even make it to the playoffs the next year after that season. And so I think we went to Miami. We needed to Miami to lose. We went back to the Super Bowl the next season.
Yeah.
The previous, but we didn't go back to the Super Bowl the next year. We skipped a year.
Okay.
Didn't go to the playoffs, and then came back and went to the Super Bowl again. Mm-hmm. And we were waiting on, I think we needed Cincinnati or somebody to lose a game, and it didn't happen. And so we just, it didn't work out that year. And of course, that's the year that my appendix ruptured. Went through that whole phase and long, tough year. But, man, you learn a lot about your team and when you go through hard things and you do it together, and you remember people who were there for you during hard times. And so, man, we were a really close team and very unbreakable.
Yeah.
And so, man, I just greatly appreciate it. But being in the moment after the game was just like so much joy. And, you got 300 messages on your phone, and you're just, man, you're calling everybody, people calling you, and you're just partying, and you're just looking at all the people walking around and like people that you see on TV and music videos. Everybody wants to be at the party of the team that wins.
Yes.
And so we had all the movie stars and the rappers and the entertainers at our party.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a diehard Steelers fan, always has been, and always been very open about that. And but it was amazing, man.
Yeah. Again, we could talk all day.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to take us through some of the highlights that I know about, bring out some of the lessons.
Absolutely.
You lost the Super Bowl. What was that like? I mean, I hate talking about that, but you mentioned it. Sounds like you want to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean,
and what lessons did you learn from that?
I think just really going through that season was really, really just eye-opening for me because you have when you're part of a great team, you have a high level of expectation. You expect to win, and that particular Super Bowl we didn't win, and there was an opportunity to, for us to drive and score. There was an opportunity for us to stop, make a big play and get the 90-yard touchdown when it didn't happen. And Green Bay Packers was the better team that day.
Yeah.
And, I just remember going to the game and just how much confidence. Every time we stepped on the field, there was so much confidence because we just knew our plan. And I was confident in myself, and I was confident in the men around us.
Yeah.
And from offensive, defensively, and special teams, I just knew that we were a better team, which was not the better team that day.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely not a good feeling to make it that far and then lose.
But having won one, it probably didn't hurt quite as bad.
Yeah, it didn't hurt quite as
sure.
bad, but it was nice to have. It would have been nice to have 3, or 2 for me. A lot of my teammates had already won a Super Bowl in 2005, and then they won the next one in 2009, 10 season, and they're looking for that third one.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for my second one, and so just trying to strive to get that. And that's the thing, man. That was the last Super Bowl I played in. I haven't been to one since. So when you get those moments, you got to really capitalize, and you got to get it because you just never know. It may be your last one. Only 2 teams get to go, and one is going to walk away winner, and you're just trying to have more points than the other team, and it just kind of it didn't happen for us that day.
So you leave Clemson. I think you had a successful career there.
Yep.
You leave the NFL. You're a Super Bowl champion. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And you transition into coaching. Tell us how that happened.
That happened. Wasn't trying to do that either.
Okay.
Now that I'm reflecting on my life, I'm starting to You know, I always tell people this: you have to surrender your feet so God can order your steps.
Yeah, you started out last episode talking about
same
that.
thing, right? And you got to die to yourself. And man, God really has. You know, I always can have a plan, but at the end of the day, it's going to be what He wants for me.
Yeah.
And so I went to do an internship. Ray Horton was a defensive backs coach at the Pittsburgh Steelers. He leaves and becomes a defensive coordinator in the Arizona Cardinals. So kudos to Ray Horton. If you have an opportunity to watch this, I am forever grateful to him, because Ray Horton is the reason why I got into coaching.
Okay.
He opened the door for me, and I'll be forever grateful to him for doing that. And he became a defensive coordinator at the Cleveland Browns once they moved on from the staff there in Arizona, and give him an opportunity to do an internship. So I go to participate in the Bill Walsh Minority Fellowship.
Yep.
I'm going there to help during training camp, do my 2 weeks and get on.
That was all you were going to do.
That's all I was going to do, and I just really wanted to take some time to kind of breathe a little bit and get out of the game. And I go there, and they give me an opportunity to stay. They're like, hey, you want to be a coach? And I'm like, what? Coach, where? I'll volunteer. Like, no, we're going to have to pay you. I said, oh, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I just need a day to think about it. And I started thinking, I was like, man, this is God's opened this door. I better step in it. Yeah. And so I step in it and become a coach. Of course, they got fired after 1 year, so that wasn't good. So that was eye-opening. Rob Jaginski got fired after one season. And so now I'm just like, I go to the Tennessee Titans, and Ray was there, gave me an opportunity. Wiz Hunt gave me an opportunity there, and Ken Wiz Hunt had a year and a half, and they fired him. And so I'm just like, oh boy, this is kind of a theme.
I remember at the Titans. Now we had a great time in Nashville.
Yeah,
of course, you got some music in you. I want to pull some of that out.
Yeah,
but we coming up to Music City, seeing you coaching.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had Dick LeBeau, right?
Absolutely.
Joined you on the staff.
Staff. My old coordinator I played for was joined the staff and ended up becoming the coordinator at the Tennessee Titans as well.
So you were at Tennessee for a couple of years, and then they fired that. You were there for 5 years, so you stayed on when
they hired Malarkey.
When Malarkey,
became, and so just going through that, and then we went to the second round of playoffs. I'll never forget this. And I'm sitting in my living room at my condo downtown Nashville, and I remember getting a call from our head coach saying that they just relieved him of his duties. We were, I think, 10-6. We beat Kansas City at Kansas City.
Wow.
Went to New England and lost against Tom Brady, who was still in his prime at the time. And I'm thinking, a contract extension. I'm going to get a contract extension.
Yeah.
Defensive line played phenomenally. And we were good, and next thing you know, it's like I'm, moving on. And so at that point, I was done. I met Dave Roberts.
Yep.
And I was going to get out of coaching, and I was going to start a non-emergent transportation business.
I was
like, I'm done.
I think I introduced you to Dave Roberts.
1,000% at the, obviously you gave me the opportunity to host the South Carolina Hall of Fame ceremony.
You hosted the first South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, which was incredible.
Thank you. And so, man, I was done. I came here and I interned with the ambulance company. Yeah. And I was going to do that and set the whole thing up. And then at the end of the season, when the hiring season came, I had like 6 phone calls to come back and coach. And I had an opportunity to go work with Derek Mason, who I have a lot of respect for, who's like a brother to me. Yep. And, man, went there and was there for about 2 months. And I go back to the NFL, to the Bengals. And, and that was just a unique experience. I learned a lot about the effect that I have on college athletes. Okay. Because that was one of the hardest conversations I ever had to have, is with a young group of men who was excited about being coached by me. Yeah. Coming from the NFL. Yeah. And you got to go tell them, hey, guys, I've decided to go back to the league. I've been there, I've been at Vanderbilt now for about 2 months. Yeah. And then you got a couple kids in there in tears. They're crying, And I'm just like, oh, boy. Yeah. That just stung a little different. And realizing the relationships do matter and how I impacted their lives, that they will be in tears after 2 months of me leaving. And so I was like, man, I never wanted to have to experience that again. And so ended up going to the Bengals there for 2 seasons, 2 rough years. But, man, I had a heck of a head coach in Zach Taylor, man. It was phenomenal, one of the best I've ever worked for in the NFL, along with all the guys. I've always had great NFL head coaches I worked for. Malarkey, Kim Winston-Hunt was awesome. Chud, they all were great. And so I was there for 2 seasons, man, and ended up getting a call from Coach Mason and said the defensive line coach left, and that's how I ended up at Auburn. and then was there for a season and learned a lot there. I'm constantly always learning, and the blessing in all of this, the success in all of it, is being able to be in different places to see how people win and see how people lose.
Yeah.
And why. And so I have such a different perspective, even when it comes down to the camaraderie of your team and the camaraderie of your staff.
Yeah.
So leadership and relationships do matter in business and anywhere.
Yeah.
And so just having an opportunity to be there, I learned a lot. And then obviously Coach Sweeney gave me the opportunity to come back home, as I say. This is going to be my 5th season back at Clemson now.
It's been incredible.
It's been
an incredible journey.
Time has flown by, and I'm really grateful for all the lessons learned, the hills, the valleys, and all the challenges that I've had in my life has really shaped me. They say iron sharpens iron. I tell you what, my life has had some iron in it.
Yeah.
That is sharpened me, and so I'm just truly grateful for that. Yeah.
I want to talk. There's so much stuff, Nick. You're going to have to. We're going to have to do another show. But I want to, before I let you go here, I want to talk to you a little bit about. We've talked about what you've learned in college. We've talked about what you've learned in the pros. We've talked about how you've learned as a coach and the different folks that you've learned for. And that's all life. But you've learned and you've taught me through death. And that's a very challenging situation. Your mother, you mind talking a little bit about, her fight with cancer? How did that affect you?
I think one thing that I learned in life, that God is always in control of every situation. And as you mentioned, I've lost my grandparents, my mom, I've lost multiple family members, and even when I go home now, it's like a ghost town. There's nobody there because my siblings, they don't live in tombs anymore.
Tell me about them too. I wanted to talk. Your brother and sister.
Yep, brother and sister doing well.
You got one of each.
Yep.
What's their names again?
John and Calvin.
Okay.
And
they older or younger?
They are younger.
Okay.
Little brother and little sister.
Okay.
One's a minister of music. My sister works at for a plant down in Georgia. She works as like an executive assistant director there, and so she's loving life, and
great.
Kids are doing well, and so they're doing awesome, man. But I will tell you this, man, that my prayers have changed over the years when I've been put in a situation where there's a possibility that God could call somebody home. And I used to say, when my mom was sick, I was like, Lord, I sent her to Arizona. She came to Arizona with me, and Lord, do this, and Lord, do that, and do this. And it was just selfish prayers, right? And so what I learned through that, what he taught me, is that regardless, he is always going to be in control. There's nothing you can do about it. And so when I really started thinking about it over time, I prayed that he, let my mom live, gone. Prayed that he let my grandmother live, and grandfather, gone. And I'm sitting there, I was just like, you know what, God, how about this? So my prayer went from, Lord, heal them. And I said, Lord, listen, you know the desires of my heart, but let your will be done. Because in the end, his will is going to be done in those situations. And once you realize, when you realize that God is really in control of everything, moving and coming and going, it's like you can have peace in that, And
if you trust God.
If you trust God. And that's why it's like, man, I try to live my life inside out. People can say and have all these different narratives, but at the end of the day, I'm going to answer to him, and whatever he wants is going to happen, regardless of how much you pray, how much you cry, etc. And so that's been my prayer. I always say, Lord, help me to surrender my feet so you can order my steps. I have to surrender myself so you can order my steps. And then once I realize that he's in control of everything, I can have peace and sleep at night. And whatever it is, or whatever advancements in my career, or whatever I'm asking God to do in my life, and it's like, Lord, you're in control of it. If you want it to happen, it's going to happen. If you don't, you will cut it off. And so, man, I've just learned to just truly trust him. And since I've found peace in that, I don't compromise my faith or my health for nobody.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I read. I read this book. I brought it and actually picked it up out of my truck. It's on top. It's called Wisdom Walks. And it says, live intentionally and maximize relationships, pass the torch. And so I read this every day. It's one of the best books I've read. It's called Wisdom Walks by Dan Britton and Jimmy Page. And it is phenomenally awesome. And it only talks to me, but it helps me talk to my players and people that I have to lead at Clemson football.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you again. There's a lot of things that I don't want to get into about Clemson.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do want to get into in general about Clemson.
About me,
So your role there,
how
you see yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't have the season you wanted. Everybody knows that. How do you handle that? And
man, I would say this.
And what is your sort of goal for your role?
For my role, I just want to,
And what is that role?
My role, I'm associate head coach, co-defensive coordinator. I coach the defensive tackles.
Okay.
And my job is to make Clemson better, affect the lives of the people that I touch in the most positive way, raise their level of expectation for themselves. And I just want to be an elevator that helps people, be the best version of themselves. That is my ultimate goal. And as long as I continue to work hard, and as long as I continue to trust God and surrender the outcome and surrender my feet so He can order my steps, that's what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, I think that God meant for me to be here where I'm at right now, even on this podcast today. Because I really feel like, my life is going to touch somebody else's life. It's going to be an inspiration to somebody. And that's the type of energy. Energy is contagious. And so I want to be a positive energy on everybody that comes in contact with me. And not only through just my positivity or through my motivation, through my leadership, but also through my testimony of where God has brought me from. Because it ain't always been squeaky clean. And man, I am so thankful for the lessons that I've learned that God has really taken me through. And I think everybody's going through the Red Sea. It's just a matter of where you're at, but you're going to come through it. You just got to trust God and know that it's going to happen.
Well, I appreciate the Lord having you here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, I think if it wasn't for Him, you and I wouldn't have a relationship.
Absolutely.
I think you and I have been through some challenging times as agents and friends and attorney and client, and but our faith really
100%.
has been the reason why you're here today.
100%, man. And I think that's really important that you mentioned that. I people come to me all the time about life and situations, et cetera, that are going through things, right?
Yep. And
I really talk a lot about how are you going to respond? Are you going to respond in your way? Or are you going to respond in God's way?
Yeah.
And I think that, that's a testament to our relationship. We talk about that with, me being with you and then leaving and coming back and forth. It's like we both have responded in a godly way.
Yeah.
And if we have responded with our flesh, then it's like, I don't know if I want to go see David. I don't know if I want to deal with Nick either. But at the end of the day, man, God has always been in the midst of our relationship.
There's no
question.
question.
In the front of it.
Yeah.
And when you have God in your life, man, you're responding. What would, people wear those, wristbands. What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
And so I've learned that in my leadership, in my role as a coach. It's like, man, how I'm going to respond when a kid comes in and tells me something I don't want to hear, or when he's lazy, or when a family member lets me down, or I deal with people who don't even know me, pass judgment on me, to not even hear my story or know who I am.
Right.
And, in the hour or 30 minutes or so we've been in here, there's still like 7 more months of information I can talk about.
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah, right.
There's so much.
But
you got to come back.
I will.
Jesus, the greatest leader that ever lived. I mean, when you look at him as a leader, it really does.
100%.
And I can't let you get out of here, though, because, I'm an entertainment and sports lawyer. I got to talk about music.
Oh, 100%.
So, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, the listeners. We've kind of been all over the place.
Absolutely.
I mean, this has been a lot of fun for me, Nick, and
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Likewise.
And hopefully the listeners are enjoying this as much as I am, as much as we are. But, you're a great musician. That was one of the things that when we got together, you came over to the studio. And you picked up the bass. I had the guitar. I was like, man, you were really, really talented.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know music
Right.
and can play music, which, I mean, just tell us about that. And now what I understand, now I hadn't heard it yet, but I hear and I believe, just because I know you, that you're a great lead guitarist now.
Absolutely.
But tell me about that. Tell me about your music.
I grew up in the church playing the drums when I was 5 years old, and the bass. And,
Little Nick Eason playing the drums.
Absolutely, 5 years old, keeping the beat. And one thing I've learned as a musician is that the drums and bass work together. They are the ground of the music.
No doubt.
They keep it rocking. And so, for some reason, that's why I know that many are called and few are chosen. I've been called, and I operate my gift. And so my gift is being able to play the drums, play the bass. I know that I can do those things. I learned how to play the bass within 2 weeks. Somebody just taught me, and I think just because the bass and the drums work together, I just watching, and 2 weeks, my uncle was on vacation. He came back and I was playing church. He was like, "Who taught you how to play the bass?" And I'm like, I was talking about James, who's one of James Harris, who was a friend of my uncle's. And he was like, "What in the world? 2 weeks?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I just know how to do it. And I can play by ear." And so when I got to, I could always play the keys enough to play in church and play the organ a little bit. And then when I got to Nashville, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna learn how to play the lead guitar. And man, I literally self-taught myself on YouTube to learn how to play the lead. And then once I understand, the basics and understanding notes and half chords and understanding theory, music theory behind all of it, I was like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
And so I've always known how to play by ear, and that's just something. But yeah, the more, it's not anything. The more you play, the better you get. The less you play, the worse you get. And so, I enjoy music and all genres of music. Whether it be country, R&B, soul, church music. Obviously, that's my background, so that's always the easiest thing for me. But man, I just enjoy. I think music is a service to the community too.
Yeah.
Music has really got me through a lot of tough times and great times in my life.
Well, y'all look out, because I'm going to try to get Nick to come do a little rehearsing with our band.
Absolutely.
We're going to feature Nick Eason on the lead guitar. He might be playing drums and bass before he gets out. You never know.
I look forward to it.
But well, Nick, is there anything that I should have asked you today that I didn't, that you'd like to add to this conversation?
You probably, generally people always ask about, man, how do you lose weight? Like, how'd you lose 155 pounds?
Yeah.
And for me, I think just a few things. It's real simple. One, you got to find out what works best for you. Find out what is causing you to gain weight or be in the space that you're in. And I had a conversation with one yesterday. We were talking about working out and doing this, that, and the third. And I said, man, don't ever start anything until your mind is right. You got to get your mind right first. And
what do you mean by that?
Meaning, like, you have to understand why you're doing something, and understand like what's going on in your life, and really find the underlying issue of what got you there.
Gotcha.
And then study the things what's going to keep you there. And you're going to have to eliminate a lot of things and people in your life when you go into the season, if that's what you want to do. If you're in a place where you're trying to lose weight. And the biggest thing, man, is to get close to God. Don't compromise your faith or your health for nobody. And you just have to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And that means, I always say in the game of football, champions are built when no one is watching. Well, I lost this weight when nobody's watching. And, I've been doing, Pilates. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I go to Pilates, and then I do a second workout in the gym, lift weights. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And my health is important to me. It helps me inspire people. It helps me be a better coach. It helps me to have energy at practice. I've been an inspiration to other people.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just trying to be the living example for what I demand of my players and other people around me. And that's to be the best version of themselves. And so I just try to provide that servant, leadership. And that's how I'm just being a servant, man, just by helping people and that maybe are struggling with that area of their lives. And then too, man, just whatever you asked me about, I would think I want to talk about. Nothing. I think we covered a lot. I just think that I'm just excited, man, what God is doing in my life. And really at the end of the day, I think anytime that you're close to greatness, and whether it be promotions or things, like, the enemy is going to come to distract you. The devil will come to kill, steal, and destroy. I truly believe in that. And that has happened, in my life, all the time. It's just like, here come these distractions, whether it be people, whether it's the opinions of others, whether it's, not getting promotions or whatever people may be going through. It's just that, man, you just got to trust God. It's going to all work out in the end. If you can have that perspective on life, I think it's all going to work out great.
He tells you to stay focused on him and the enemy. He's trying to distract us,
100%,
discourage us, destroy us, but you stay focused.
Man, Peter was the greatest example, right? He was walking on the water, and as soon as he took his eyes off of God, what did he do? He sank. And so, man, in order not to sink in life, because that's the thing that I've learned in the last couple of years, losing is 155 pounds, that I know is that I had more problems then like my life there were things going on around me, right? In the past, I would allow those things to take over me. Then I start stress eating, or I get removed from God. But now that I don't compromise my faith, I've learned my response to life obstacles and situations have changed. You're always gonna have problems. Just because you're Christian, don't mean you're gonna have issues.
Right.
You're gonna have issues, but how you respond to those issues, or even how you respond to people who falsely accuse you, don't even know you. That when you sit in my shoes, you have to deal with, that's a kind of a hot seat. Let alone I'm not even the head coach, but you have to deal with some criticism. But at the end of the day, it's just like, man, I live a life inside out. I live my life for Christ, not for the opinion of other people. And so, man, at the end of the day, man, you have to stay inside out. And one thing I've learned since I've been at Clemson is that, a ship doesn't sink because of the water on the outside. It sinks because of the water that gets inside, right? And so you have to keep that water out of the inside of you that's on the outside. And that's distraction, that's people, that's life, etc. And how you respond is that's why you get close to God. He changes how you respond to life situations. That's what it is. You're going to have problems, but your response is going to be in his way, for his glory.
Well, that's well said. And again, thank you very much, Nick.
Pleasure, man.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
We'll be back on the Straight Line to Success.
And they're just doing the best they can.
Thank you for listening to the Straight Line to Success. Copyright 2026 Wyatt Sports and Entertainment, LLC. All rights reserved. Visit www.tslts.com and join the TSLTS Insider for exclusive content and updates.
We're wrong. We're doing the best we can. Everybody do your best. Come on, come on. Do your best. Do your best. The best you can.